Everything was too quiet that night. The kind of silence that wraps around your throat like a warning. I had returned just a few days earlier, without my uniform. Of course, it wasn't a ceremony day. I just wanted to have dinner in peace with the family. But my place at the table felt smaller than I remembered, as if my presence bothered everyone. The dining room looked exactly the same. Same mahogany table. Mom had polished every Sunday. Same crystal glasses that caught the light just right. Same family photos on the mantel, though I noticed mine had been moved to the back. 7 years away will do that to you. 7 years of serving, of being away, of becoming someone they didn't recognize anymore. To continue listening to this beautiful and special story, please leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Write your name and the city you're watching from so I can include a special greeting for you in the next story. My cousin Marcus sat at the head of the table like he owned the place. Maybe he thought he did. His wife Sarah kept glancing at me with that look. The one that said I was the uninvited guest at my own family dinner. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent years defending strangers' homes. And here I was, feeling like a stranger in my own. So, Isabel, Marcus said, cutting into his steak with unnecessary force. How long are you planning to stay this time? The question hung in the air like smoke. I took a sip of wine. Mom's favorite vintage. The one she saved for special occasions. Apparently, my homecoming didn't qualify as special enough for them to break it out. I had opened it myself. I'm not sure yet, I said quietly. I'm still figuring things out. Well, Sarah chimed in, her voice dripping with fake concern. You know you can't just live here indefinitely. I mean, there are practical considerations. Practical considerations. As if I was some vagrant who had wandered in from the street. The conversation continued around me, but I was somewhere else entirely. I was thinking about the last time I had sat at this table. It was 3 weeks before I left for my second deployment. Mom had made her famous pot roast, and we had talked about everything and nothing. She had seemed tired then, more tired than I realized. You know I love you, right? She had said out of nowhere, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. Of course, Mom, I love you too. Good. Because sometimes love means making hard decisions. Sometimes it means protecting the people who matter most, even when they're not there to protect themselves. I hadn't understood what she meant then. Now, with the deed burning a hole in my briefcase beside my chair, I understood perfectly. Marcus was still talking. Something about property taxes and maintenance costs. How the house was becoming a burden. How someone needed to make adult decisions about the future. The way he said it, you'd think I was still the 18-year-old who had left for basic training all those years ago. The thing is, he continued, gesturing with his wine glass, Mom always said this house should stay in the family, and we're the ones who've been here. We're the ones who took care of her at the end. The lie sat there between us like a third dinner guest. I had been the one on video calls at 3 in the morning, helping Mom with her medication schedule. I had been the one who arranged for the home health aide when she got too weak to climb the stair. I had been the one who held her hand through a pixelated screen while she took her last breath because my flight home had been delayed by a storm. But I didn't say any of that. Not yet. Sarah started clearing the plates, and I watched her move around the kitchen with the familiarity of someone who had made herself at home. She knew where everything was. She had rearranged the spice rack. She had replaced Mom's old coffee maker with some fancy machine that probably cost more than my monthly base pay. We've been thinking, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair like a king holding court. Maybe it's time to sell. The market's good right now, and honestly none of us really need a house this big. None of us. As if I was part of some collective decision-making process. As if my opinion mattered. I mean, you're military, Sarah added, returning to the table with dessert. You're used to living in small spaces. You probably don't even want all this responsibility. They had it all figured out. My life, my wants, my needs. They had reduced me to a uniform and a stereotype. The career soldier who didn't understand civilian life. The woman who had chosen duty over family and now had to live with the consequences. Besides, Marcus continued, what would you even do with a house like this? You're never here. You're always off somewhere. Playing soldier. Playing soldier. The words hit me like a physical blow. I thought about the friends I had lost. The missions I had run. The nights I had spent in hostile territory wondering if I would ever see home again, playing soldier. I set down my fork very carefully. My hands didn't shake. They never shook anymore. The military had taught me that much. I see, I said quietly. The conversation moved on to other topics. Sarah talked about her book club. Marcus complained about his job. They discussed vacation plans and home renovations, and all the mundane details of their comfortable lives. I sat there invisible, listening to them make plans for my mother's house. The house where I had learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where I had hidden under the stairs during thunderstorms, where Mom had taught me to make her famous chocolate chip cookies, the recipe she had learned from her mother, where I had made the decision to enlist, driven by some need to serve something bigger than myself. You know what I've been thinking, Marcus said suddenly, as if the thought had just occurred to him. Maybe Isabel should sign over her share. I mean, if she's not going to use it, why complicate things? Her share, as if I was some minor stakeholder in my own family's legacy. That makes sense, Sarah agreed. Clean and simple, no messy legal stuff down the road. They were talking about me like I wasn't there, like I was some obstacle to be managed, some problem to be solved. I could feel the familiar calm settling over me, the same calm I felt before a mission, the same focus that had kept me alive in places where people wanted to kill me. Actually, I said, and my voice was so quiet they almost didn't hear me, there's something you should know. Marcus looked at me with mild irritation, as if I was interrupting something important. What's that? I reached down beside my chair and pulled out my briefcase. It was the same one I had carried through 3 deployments, battered leather, reliable latches, big enough for important documents. I opened it slowly, methodically, the way I had been trained to handle explosive devices. There's been a misunderstanding, I said. The document was exactly where I had left it, folded once, signed in Mom's careful handwriting, notarized and filed with the county clerk exactly 7 years, 3 months and 12 days ago. I had memorized those numbers. They had gotten me through some very dark nights. What's that? Sarah asked. But her voice had changed. She sensed something shifting in the room. I unfolded the deed carefully. The paper was cream-colored, official, with raised seals and legal language that left no room for interpretation. Mom's signature was at the bottom, right next to the notary's stamp. Isabel Marie Hartley, sole owner. This is the deed to the house, I said simply. Mom transferred it to me before my last deployment. She said she wanted to make sure it was protected. The silence that followed was different from the silence at the beginning of the evening. This was the silence of people recalculating their entire worldview in real time. Marcus reached for the document like it might bite him. This can't be right. She never said anything about this. She didn't need to, I said. She was protecting the house. She was protecting me. She knew that someday, someone might try to take advantage of my absence. Sarah's face had gone pale. But we've been paying the property taxes. We've been maintaining everything. We've been living here. I know, I said, and I appreciate that. The house looks beautiful. Mom would have been proud. The words hung in the air like a judgment, because that's what this was. Really, a judgment on who deserved what, who had earned the right to call this place home. Marcus was still staring at the deed like it was written in a foreign language. This doesn't make sense. She always said the house should stay in the family. It is staying in the family. I said, I'm family. But you're never here. You chose the military over us. You chose duty over family. The accusation sat between us like a loaded weapon. I had heard it before in different forms from different people. The suggestion that my service was somehow selfish, that my choice to defend my country was a betrayal of my personal relationships. I chose to serve, I said quietly, just like Dad did, just like his father did. It's what we do in this family, or at least it used to be. That's different, Sarah said. They were men. They had wives to take care of things at home. The sexism was breathtaking in its casual cruelty, as if my service was somehow less valid because I was a woman, as if my sacrifice was somehow less meaningful because I didn't have a husband to maintain my domestic life while I was gone. I see, I said again. It was becoming my standard response, the verbal equivalent of a tactical retreat. Look, Marcus said, trying to regain control of the conversation. Maybe we can work something out. Maybe we can buy you out, give you a fair price for your share. My share? He was still talking about my share of my own house. This isn't about money, I said. Everything's about money, he replied. You're just being emotional. Emotional. Another weapon in their arsenal. The suggestion that my response was somehow irrational, that my attachment to my childhood home was some kind of female weakness. I stood up slowly, the way I had learned to stand when facing a superior officer. Straight spine, squared shoulders, hands at my sides, the posture of someone who was not afraid and would not be intimidated. You're right, I said. I am being emotional. This house holds every memory I have of my mother. Every Christmas morning, every birthday party, every quiet Sunday afternoon. It holds the memory of my father, who died defending this country when I was 12. It holds the memory of my grandmother, who raised me after he died because Mom was working 3 jobs to keep us afloat. My voice was getting stronger but not louder. In the military, you learn that true authority doesn't need volume. This house holds the memory of every night I spent on video calls with Mom, trying to help her manage her medication from 6,000 miles away. It holds the memory of every birthday I missed, every holiday I spent in a foreign country, every sacrifice I made so that people like you could sit in houses like this and argue about property taxes. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. I wasn't finished. And yes, this house holds the memory of my mother's last words to me. She said, "Isabel, home isn't a place, it's the people who choose to love you when you're not there to make them." She said, she was proud of me. She said, she understood why I had to leave. And she said, she was going to make sure I always had a place to come back to. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the grandfather clock in the hallway seemed to have stopped ticking. She kept her promise, I said. Even when I thought I had lost everything, even when I thought I was alone, she kept her promise. Chapter 8. The Unexpected Revelation. Sarah was crying now, quiet tears that she wiped away with her napkin. "We didn't know," she whispered. "We didn't know about the deed. We didn't know about the calls. We thought you had abandoned her." "I would never abandon her," I said, "just like I would never abandon this house, just like I would never abandon family. Even when family tries to abandon me." The words were an accusation and a forgiveness all at once, because that's what families do. They hurt each other and heal each other in equal measure. Marcus looked up from the deed, and for the first time all evening, I saw something vulnerable in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm sorry I said those things. I'm sorry I assumed. I'm sorry I didn't understand." "You don't have to understand," I said. "You just have to respect it." "So what happens now?" Sarah asked. "Do you want us to leave? Do you want us to pack up and go?" It was a fair question. They had been living here for months, building a life in the space I had left behind. They had made it their home, even if they had no legal right to do so. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I need to think about it. I need to figure out what home means to me now." "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. I nodded. "When you slid that deed across the table, did you know what I was going to say?" I sat back down, the adrenaline finally starting to fade. "I hoped you wouldn't say it," I admitted. "I hoped that after all these years, after everything that had happened, maybe things would be different. But you were prepared for it." "I'm always prepared," I said. "That's what the military teaches you. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst." "Why didn't you tell us about the deed earlier?" Sarah asked. "Why did you let us think?" "Because I wanted to see who you really were. I wanted to see if you would welcome me home, or if you would try to push me out. I wanted to see if 7 years of service had earned me the right to be treated like family in my own house." The answer was obvious now. It hung in the air like smoke from an extinguished candle. "I'm sorry," Marcus said again. "I'm sorry we failed that test." "You didn't fail," I said. "You just revealed something about yourselves, and about me, about what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not." "What do you mean?" I looked around the dining room one more time. The mahogany table, the crystal glasses, the family photos, it all looked the same, but it felt different now, like I was seeing it through new eyes. "I mean, I spent 7 years defending the idea of home. I spent 7 years fighting for the principle that everyone deserves a place where they belong, but I never stopped to ask myself what home actually means to me. And what does it mean?" I smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I had managed all evening. It means a place where people are happy to see you, where you don't have to prove your right to exist, where you can put down your weapons and just be. 3 weeks later, I was packing my things again. Not all of them. I wasn't moving out permanently, but I was going back to base for a few months while I figured out my next assignment. The house would be here when I got back. It would always be here now. Marcus and Sarah were staying, but under different terms. They were paying rent, fair market value. Nothing punitive. They were maintaining the property, keeping it in good condition for when I was ready to come home permanently. Most importantly, they were treating it like my house, not theirs. I still don't understand, Sarah said, helping me carry boxes to the car. Why are you being so generous after what we said, after how we treated you? Because that's what family does, I said. We forgive each other, we find a way to move forward. But the things Marcus said about your service were born out of ignorance, not malice. He didn't understand what I was doing, or why I was doing it. Now he does. Do you think you'll ever forgive us completely? I stopped loading boxes and looked at her, really looked at her. She was younger than me, maybe 28 or 20. She had married into this family, tried to find her place in it. In her own way, she was just as lost as I was. I already have, I said. Forgiveness isn't something you earn, Sarah. It's something you choose. And I choose to forgive you because the alternative is carrying around all that anger for the rest of my life. I've carried enough heavy things already. That evening, I sat on the front porch with a cup of Mom's tea, the special blend she used to make for difficult conversation. The deed was safely locked away in my briefcase, but I had made copies for Marcus and Sarah, just so there would be no confusion in the future. My phone buzzed. A text from my commanding officer about my next assignment. There was a position opening up, stateside, that would let me be closer to home, closer to this house, this family, this complicated web of relationships that somehow still mattered to me. I thought about Mom's last words to me, about home being the people who choose to love you when you're not there to make them. I thought about the choice I had made that night at dinner, not to fight, not to argue, but simply to slide a piece of paper across the table and let the truth speak for itself. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing at all. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence. Sometimes the greatest victory is just knowing that you belong somewhere, even when other people try to convince you that you don't. I finished my tea and went inside. Tomorrow, I would start the process of making this house truly mine, not just legally, but emotionally. I would fill it with new memories, new traditions, new reasons to call it home. But tonight, I was just going to sit in my mother's kitchen and remember what it felt like to be her daughter, the daughter who had chosen service over comfort, duty over safety, principle over popularity, the daughter who had learned that home isn't a place you inherit, it's a place you create, one choice at a time. The deed was just paper, the house was just wood and stone, and memory, but the choice to belong somewhere, to fight for your place in the world, to demand respect even when people don't want to give it to you, that was everything. My name is Isabel Marie Hartley. I am a soldier, a daughter and the owner of a house that will always be home, not because a piece of paper says so, but because I choose to make it so, every single day.